Before we dive more into the quarterbacks and specifically each one, I do want to let you guys know that Cinnamon Bear Bakery and Deli, fantastic sponsors of ours. Next time you're in Harrisonburg, be sure to check them out. They're literally right across the street from the AUBC. You can park, get ready for a basketball game, and walk across the street to Cinnamon Bear Bakery and Deli, and you can check out all the fantastic stuff that they have over there. Give them a try next time you're in Harrisonburg. Tell them JMU Sports News, Jack and Bennett sent you. We would appreciate that so they can see a little ROI on this sponsorship and can hopefully get us more sponsors here in the near future. But thank you to Cinnamon Bear Bakery and Deli for being a sponsor of the JMU Sports News podcast. So I guess we go down the line. Let's go down the quarterbacks, the timeline. First, we can go Matthew Sluka. Then we'll go Camden Coleman. And then we'll break down what this means for Alonzo Barnett, because I think there's a lot of question marks around it. But first, former Holy Cross, UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka. What do you feel about this addition?
Let's start with the NIL stuff, because I feel like that's been a huge topic.
Great call. Yeah.
Right. So he goes to UNLV, plays 3 games. They go 3-0. He's running the ball like a madman. I would not say he was completing the ball like a madman. 43.8% completion percentage.
You could say he was incompleting. He was incompleting passes like a madman.
So it was a weird 3 games, but they beat Houston and Kansas during that 3-game stretch. And then also, I think, Utah Tech, which is just an incredible 3 games to start the year. 2 Big 12 teams in Utah Tech. So they put up like 70 on Utah Tech. They beat Kansas and Houston with games that were really dominated by their defense. They had a nice defense this year. I think that was really underrated. But anyway, they win those. And then he posts like at 11 o'clock one night on Eastern time. So they're on the West Coast. But he posts late at night one night. I remember this coming in. And he was like, I'm sitting out the rest of the season, essentially saying that there were, agreements that were promised to him that were not, completed or made in full. So essentially, he was under the impression he was going to get a certain amount of NIL money. I think it came out that it was not in writing. It certainly seemed like. And then they didn't pay him what he expected to be paid. He got labeled by some people as a quitter, as somebody who was bailing on his team. I don't think that's fair at all, right? That's just my opinion. I think that he thought he was going to be paid X amount of dollars and then wasn't paid. For him leaving Holy Cross, I think he certainly viewed it like a job. And if anyone took a job and they weren't being paid, I don't think you would keep doing the job just for like loyalty to your new coworkers. So it didn't work out for him there. He leaves, spends the rest of the year like working on his game with a quarterback coach in the offseason. He posts like once a month on social media. It's just him retweeting like his quarterback guru that he's worked with. So he's working on his passing, working on all those things. I don't think he's a quitter. If you watch him play, he's a really hard-nosed guy who puts his body on the line, plays hard. So it was a weird thing. I don't think JMU fans should be concerned about that at all. I think it's a little bit overblown. And also, like, I think him coming back to a coaching staff that knows him is going to help a lot. It's going to help him gain trust in the locker room. And I think it's they know who he is. They know that he's not a quitter, that he played hard for them for multiple years. It's hard to say that a guy who ran for over 1,000 yards and is like plays through physical injury and runs the ball for Holy Cross is not all about ball. Like he was playing in the Patriot League. Like he cares about football and winning games. So I think he just got sort of the short end of the stick at UVA. I mean, not at UVA, at UNLV.
Well, a little Freudian slip there. Going back to your daily progress.
No, I've been spending so much time thinking about
Cam Ross and Tyshawn Wyatt.
Yeah, how they stole those 2 guys and have that money coming in.
Quick little tangent. Isn't it funny that UVA stole Cam Ross and Tyshawn Wyatt, then JMU stole Nick DeGennaro, Landon Ellis, and Camden Coleman from Richmond? Like, it's just a pecking order.
I think UVA should have went after DeGennaro. Respectfully.
Yeah.
That's the guy you want.
But no, I'm right there with you on Sluka. I think it all is very overblown because it is insane. Like, if you're not paid for a job, granted, should he have gotten a signed letter of something? Yeah, but that's probably on his NIL agent for not getting a signed contract and trying to figure that all out. That's why, I mean, you've seen the blowback, I imagine, with these NIL agents taking 20% of their contracts. I mean, that's what they're getting paid astronomically way too much to be doing, is to get that in writing. And then when Sluka figured out that things weren't going to be coming his way. I also love the UNLV fans who blindly support the Runnin' Rebels, who are like, with the announcement, were in the replies of it, like, he's a quitter, he was getting paid, don't listen to him. It's like, yeah, he was promised like $100,000 and he got like five. Not 5,000, like just $5. They gave him a crisp bill and said, thanks for playing. Thanks for beating Kansas. But like, yeah, of course he's not going to play. And it's NIL. It's the Wild West. You have no idea. Like, there are no rules right now in it all. So I don't blame him at all. I would have quit too. And I would have eventually then rejoined my quarterback coach and Dean Kennedy, my head coach, my offensive coordinator. Dean Kennedy and Chris Smith were co-offensive coordinators in 2022, with Dean Kennedy holding quarterback coach responsibilities. That year in 2022, Sluka ran for 1,400 yards and passed for 2,500 yards. That was his best career year. He's looking to reclaim that. If he can kind of refine that type of vibe, potentially could go into the NFL draft and be a little interesting, become a Taysom Hill type or something like that. And if he has one more good year at the FBS level, could parlay that into a late round draft pick. Who knows?
He's averaged like, I want to say 6 yards a carry over his career or something like that, including sacks because he's a quarterback.
You want the official number?
Yeah, what's he got?
He's averaging 7.2 yards per attempt in his career.
Does that include the UNLV or is that the Holy
That
Cross only?
includes UNLV.
With sacks.
He
Like
averaged 6.9 yards per attempt.
he's crazy. Like he's an unbelievable runner. And I think when you look at him and evaluate him, and it sounds stupid, and it's very much like a Bronco Mendenhall at UVA thing, but you have to view him more like a football player or like offensive weapon than you do a true quarterback, because you're going to see the completion percentage and be like, oh, that's concerning. And at times it is.
Which it is. It was 43% at the FBS level.
Only fewer than 50 passes, 48 passes. So some of that, he's not throwing the ball that much. But also UNLV had like super talented receivers. So it's not great. But his ability to run, I think he had like 125 rushing yards against Kansas. His ability to scramble, lower the shoulder, do all that stuff is extremely rare for a quarterback. Like he doesn't look like a quarterback when he runs. He just seems like a guy playing football. He's almost like another running back on the field. So he's going to play. I don't know if he's going to start, but you don't bring in a guy who can run like that and then leave him on the bench. Like he will play, whether he's the starter or they have a package for him. He's going to play. He's going to be fun to watch, and he's going to make defenses stressed out because he has a very like rare skill set.
It'll be interesting to see how Sluka fits into the offense. Will be interesting to see how Dean Kennedy deploys him, what they end up doing with him. Because, oh, by the way, you also added an FCS standout quarterback in Camden Coleman. He announced his commitment yesterday, shortly after Sluka announced his. Played the last 2 years, like we said earlier, at Richmond, was the full-time starter about 3 games into the season as a sophomore, played in 7 games with 4 starts as a true freshman, has a lot of potential, rising junior, 2 years of eligibility. He excited to come in and compete. Should be really fun to see how it stacks up.
I like Coleman a lot. Like his game's cool. You watch his film. I think he's a better passer than Sluka. Like I think he's more accurate. I think he has a slightly better throwing motion. He seems to be able to do everything well. And you look at his PFF grades. The one issue JMU had last year offensively, or the major issue, right, is they sucked against the blitz. Right? We talked about that a lot. They were horrible against the blitz. Coleman's PFF grades, like against the blitz and when he's under pressure, are very similar and high. They're sort of in that like 70, 80 range when he's blitzed and when he has a clean pocket. Alonzo Barnett, when he had a clean pocket, was phenomenal. And then when he was blitzed, his grade was like 35, or under pressure, he had like a 35 PFF grade, which is not great. So Coleman can do it all. He can run. He had 340 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns last year. He can throw it at every level of the field. He knows who are the 2 like top receivers now very well. Like he's good and he's going to have a legitimate chance to start. So to get him and Sluka feels like just an unbelievable boon for JMU.
It is. I don't think it could go understated how much of a leg up it gives Camden Coleman that they are bringing in Landon Ellis and Nick DeGennaro. You are
Yeah.
bringing in his two favorite targets, should give him a big leg up in just the overall quarterback competition. He is a fantastic thrower of the football over the middle of the field. This last season, between the numbers, he went 21 of 24, 3 touchdowns, 455 yards. This is a Richmond offense that didn't throw it a ton either. And from the kind of intermediate to short passing, he is really very good. If outside left of the numbers, he went 5 of 10, outside left short 6 of 9, 58 yards, but over the middle of the field the dude is electric. Intermediate center, which is that 21 of 24, he had a 96 PFF rating. The dude just knows how to sling it, and it's rare that you get a quarterback who's willing to go kind of effectively over the middle.
Yeah.
So
He's good at every level. And I think he had better stats for sure on those short throws than Barnett did, which I know is an issue last year that fans are like, why aren't they hitting those like layup kind of things? Coleman hits the layups. He can go deep. He can go intermediate. He can do a lot of things very well.
behind the line of scrimmage and short down the middle of the field, he threw for 650 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Short or at the line of scrimmage to the left, he went 8 of 11 for about 70 yards, no touchdowns. And from the line behind the line of scrimmage to short on the right side of the field, he went 22 of 25 for 173 yards, no touchdowns. I mean, that's just solid. And if you look at like NFL passer rating, that's hovering right around 100, which is pretty darn good.
Yeah, like they have the receivers now too. They're like, you can call a screen. He throws an accurate screen and they take it for a bunch of yards because you have a lot of really good offensive linemen. Like they have built an offense in year 2 of Chesney and Dean Kennedy that has the pieces to just call like basic stuff. And your players are going to be so much better than who you're facing on like an average G5 game that they should just go make a bunch of plays. And last year, I don't think they had that consistently at receiver.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I I think Camden Coleman, I, I think he's going to be quarterback 1. And
He's your guy.
I think he'd give Alonzo Barnett a run for his money.
Yeah, he would. He would. I think it's going to be a great competition because there's so many fun like layers and wrinkles. You mentioned that Coleman's got his top 2 targets. Kennedy and Chesney have built a scheme for Sluka. Like they both have areas where there's an advantage. It's going to be an incredible competition. I think in some capacity they both have to play, especially
I
in that
think
first FCS game.
I would not be shocked if like they're running 2 quarterback sets. Maybe this is just way out of left field and this isn't possible of happening, but like I can imagine a 2 quarterback play where both of them line up in the backfield, and then like maybe Camden's in the shotgun with Sluka to his right, and they run one of those like weird like spin motions that then put Sluka. But like there's going to be some weird stuff happening when you have 2 quarterbacks with vastly different skill sets.
Yeah. Also, Sluka takes some heat for his passing, and I would agree that like he's not like an NFL tight window thrower,
You mean the 43% completion percentage?
but his career is like 65 passing touchdowns to 16 interceptions. So he doesn't like he can be inaccurate at times, but he's not really putting the ball in harm's way a ton. He does a nice job of throwing touchdowns compared to interceptions. He likes to stretch the field deep. Like if you put in Sluka on like let's say it's 2nd and 1 and you act like you're going to run some power run up the middle and then you like leak a tight end out, he can make that throw. He's not like
Yeah.
incompetent, you know what I mean? Like he's maybe not like some of the throws Barnett made last year were pretty absurd. Like, whoa, that's like an NFL caliber throw.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of those you're going to get, but he can run and he's capable of making those layups. Like he's fun. And then Coleman can really sling it.
Yeah. Coleman is that passer. But I just did the quick math as you were talking. Sluka in his career, including UNLV, he has scored 104 touchdowns, both rushing and passing. He has turned the ball over just 38 times, which means he's averaging 2.7 touchdowns for every turnover. Let's round that up to 3 touchdowns for every turnover.
It's
Like
good.
He doesn't throw interceptions. His one kind of issue, I guess, is fumbles. He had 4 in 3 games this last season. Career high of 6 fumbles in a season in a single season. He did that in 2023 and 2021. He was on pace to shatter that if he played the
Yeah.
full season against UNLV with UNLV. So maybe kind of keep an eye on fumbling, but I think that's just a kind of it happens when you run the way Matthew Sluka runs.
Yeah, and it's a high volume too. Like he runs the ball a lot. So having, let's say Sluka's the starter, having Coleman is a pretty big deal for depth too. If Barnett can't go, we'll get to that in a second. But having two good guys when one of your quarterbacks like is a psychopath when he's on the field is good
He
because he's never sliding. Like he will never slide. He doesn't slide.
averaged 13 designed carries a game.
He's
13 designed runs
crazy to
because
watch. It's crazy to watch him play football.
and then he had 6 scrambles as well. So he ran the ball 15 times a game last year. That would have led JMU in
And
rushing
it,
attempts per game.
and I think he threw it 48, right? So that's right around 15 a game too. So he's
Yeah,
basically like running it per game as much as he was passing it for UNLV.
insane. But I am intrigued to see how Matthew Sluka works out. I'm very excited to see Camden Coleman and his integration into this offense as well. That brings me, though, to the status of Alonzo Barnett.
This part sucks, right? This part's no fun. Seems pretty clear he will not be ready for the start of the season, and probably I think he's probably going to take a medical red shirt in 25.
I've heard from sources familiar with the situation, I'll get all technical with it, that he won't be ready by fall camp.
That
And
checks.
I think if he will not be ready by fall camp, this is me now speculating. If he is not ready by fall camp, they will redshirt him because you have the 2 quarterbacks you just brought in through the transfer portal. You don't want to rush him back.
Yes.
And I think something we said a lot during the season was I can't wait to see him have an off season as quarterback 1 to develop. If he's not going to be ready by fall camp, he won't really be doing football related activities until then, until August, September, like
Mhm.
even just doing football related activities, then who knows when he'll get cleared for contact. I would be shocked if we learn anything about this injury as time goes on. They were tight-lipped about Tyshawn Wyatt. They were tight-lipped about what happened with Chauncey Logan. They've been tight-lipped about every injury. Dylan Morris, we had no idea was even hurt. I'd be shocked if they really say too much about what's happening with Alonzo Barnett, but he probably will not be playing in 2025.
Yeah, it sure seems that way. I don't think you bring in two high-level quarterbacks if you think the guy who started for you last year with some honorable mentions good to go, unless you're a lunatic.
Psychopath.
Yeah, because
Because
I
even
don't.
if
Yeah,
they had brought in just one, I think I'd be like,
yeah,
okay, he might be ready because they just want to bring in
sure.
competition for him. But bringing in 2, it's like, okay, we want JC to sit another year or maybe
Mhm.
another 2 years. Alonzo's not going to be playing.
Yeah,
Sound Off interviewed Billy Atkins the other day and made it seem like Billy Atkins has played his last snap at JMU. Good for Billy. Go out on that high note because he was a redshirt junior, had
yeah,
another year of eligibility if he wanted to take it. But I think he could see the writing on the wall. And now you bring in 2 quarterbacks to battle and be that QB 1 and 2 and fight it out. Yeah, that just tells me that Alonzo Barnett will not be playing in 2025.
yeah. It seems that way, which is a huge bummer. And I think the crazy part is like it's the system is so weird. You can't even really speculate about what's going to happen in 2026 because there's too many scenarios, right? Like if JMU balls out, Chesney could be gone in a year. Coleman could follow him. Coleman could stay. Barnett could follow him. Barnett could stay. Coleman could also like. There's just too many scenarios of what could happen if they play very well. But hopefully Alonzo Barnett is able to play again in a JMU uniform, and this isn't the end of that part of his college career. But also, yeah, it sucks because like he started the year incredibly well, had his ankles banged up, which I think hurt him in the middle toward end of the season. And then he also had this knee injury where he missed the bowl game. Like it just stinks for him because he's worked pretty hard to improve and get to where he is. We were excited to see him play as QB1, but it's a business, right? Which is why Chesney goes out and adds 2 starting caliber quarterbacks, and I think it's pretty clear to us that they view JC Evans as still developing and like a backup option. I don't think it's like a three-way, like a legitimate three-way battle to start.
No, I think JC has the potential to be really good, but I mean, they see him still as a raw passing talent because even in the bowl game, according to reports, is that they didn't call a single pass play for JC Evans.
He
The
checked
one
out of it,
he
yeah.
checked out of a run play into a pass at the goal line. So technically, Dean Kennedy did not do a single passing play with his freshman QB.
Yeah, I mean, you look at he has 1 career passing yard because he did check out of it and throw a touchdown on that little 1-yard pass. Sluka has 65 career passing touchdowns, right? So 65 times more passing touchdowns
Good math, man.
than Evans has yards. So there's just a certain level of experience as a passer that Sluka and Coleman have that Evans doesn't, that he would have to have such an incredible spring and fall camp for them to be like, yeah, we think you're the starter to go beat Louisville in week 2.
Yeah.
Unlikely.
A ranked Louisville, probably.
Yeah. He is good, though. Evans is good, and having him as like QB3 is pretty absurd.
Yeah. I mean, dude would probably be started if we were talking about this off the air. If JC Evans was being recruited by Chesney at Holy Cross, late flip. It was fun on signing day last year. If he had ended up going to Holy Cross and Chesney had stayed at Holy Cross with Dean Kennedy and everything, JC Evans probably would have been the starter or had gotten a lot more snaps at least and would be going into this offseason as like a QB1 potential at Holy Cross.
Yeah.
Just because I think it would have fit the system and a perfect kind of heir apparent to Sluka.
Yeah, and if Sluka gets dinged up this year, like I'm sure they're going to have an Evans running package again because he's got that in the bag.
Yeah, because he's already burned his red shirt. He got his red shirt last year. He did not play in 4 games. So
yeah,
he's could be a redshirt freshman if he wants to move up a year as he is a rising redshirt freshman. You get what I'm saying.